Hello, everyone, and welcome to the main stage Monday night on the Main Event 365 Halloween edition. I'm your host, Main Event Mike, along with Russ Wayne, the producer, and at Greg Rice 20, the West Coast stat master. We're talking about NFL football, specifically Detroit Lions football. Detroit Lions fall at home 31-27 to the Miami Dolphins. We are joined by our illustrious panel, as previously introduced, and we are going to talk about the Lions' loss at Miami. Then we're going to look ahead to the game next week, and we've got a very special guest, Bill the Packer fan, in our Know Thy Enemy segment. So without further ado, let's start it off with Russ Wayne, our producer. How are you, Russ?
Oh, Russ is doing just fine, man. I swear I thought that you got the memo about the costume thing. That we're going to go ahead and call that off, man. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, I didn't get to my phone, bro. Time. That's real funny. Real funny, guys.
Yeah.
But you are still rocking that Lex Luthor, though. So looks good to me.
Yeah, that's right.
So, Russ, what are your initial reactions from this loss to the Fish?
My initial reactions was like, it just felt like I was going down one of those nicely scripted roads where we started out really, really, really good and we were kicking their butts and we were dominating. Gosh, I was writing down in my notes. I was like, wow, man, the offensive line is pushing them out of the way. They're making it look easy to score. And in the first half, I swear that if it was 1.5 games, we'd be 16-0 or 17-0 this year. But unfortunately, there's two halves of football, and the completely opposite, the Mr. Hyde of Dr. Jekyll shows up in the second half, and it's a completely different team. All of a sudden, they're just committing penalties. They start out a drive on 1st and 30 or something like that. I mean, you just can't win games when you're making mistakes like that. And you know what? Hill and Waddle did what Hill and Waddle do, dude. I mean, if anybody figures out how to stop these guys, can you let the rest of the NFL know? Because these guys are really, really good. Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Now that we've got that all cleared up, my initial reaction is we lost the game, a close game to a good team.
At Greg Rice 20, what's your initial reaction to this Lions loss?
Other than the Cowboys and Patriots game, this game resembles so much of our other losses. Like Russ was just touching on, it's the tale of two halves. We come out on fire and look like one of the best offensive teams in the league. And for whatever reason, there's no adjustments made in the second half. I almost feel like Ben Johnson is like, what we're doing is working, and no one's countering in the room. Like, what if their defense makes adjustments? And it's really getting so played out. And Mike, like we were touching on, I have yet to see our Detroit Lions play a complete game in 3 facets. The closest we ever came was against the Commanders, in which we played 1 half. And then they tried to rally on us, and they almost did. We were a Will Harris interception away from them getting either the game tying or go-ahead touchdown. and it's just getting old. It really is just getting old. I think a lot of it predicates on this defense. I understand Tyreek Hill and Waddle are huge nightmares for any defensive coordinator, but so is Geno Smith for us. So was Bailey Zapp. Like this is starting to get. It's turning into a worn script where it's almost like Groundhog's Day.
We keep saying the same things week after week, and you're right. We were one Will Harris interception away from being 0-7, actually. Yep. So I think my initial reaction from this game is, that they're exactly what we thought they were, only a little worse on the defensive side.
But they are who we thought they were.
If you look at their roster up and down, they're extremely young. They've got a lot of undrafted free agents, a lot of low-round guys that are playing. We knew Brad Holmes was playing the salary cap game this year, and it's just crushing when we come out throttling on offense. And it was really, really tough to see. We knew, last week we had a guest on, Reginald, who's the Miami Dolphins super fan, and he predicted that Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill would run crazy on us. In fact, he said, quote, "They will shred you." And Russ just alluded to it. They did run crazy on us for 20 catches, 300 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That's absurd. Their speed was on full display. Our DBs didn't have an answer all day for them. I mean, in the stat box, it looks like we handled the run because they only had 87 yards rushing or whatever. Most only have 53. But heck, when you're able to just turn your thoroughbreds loose in the secondary, why not do it? It seemed like they had no problem scoring on us. Hill and Waddle really did produce like they said. What do you think was the key to them running all over? Is it our lack of talent, or are they just that good, Greg?
We knew what Hill was made of. Most NFL enthusiasts do. The cheetah. I'm a great player. Shredded us. 12 catches, 188 yards. Jalen Waddle, maybe a little less known, but almost as dynamic. 8 catches, 106 yards for 2 touchdowns. We got shredded. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. No one in our secondary this side of Kirby Joseph looked good. Jeff Okudah did okay for, granted, the competition he was up against. Once again, Amani Oruwariye, just a couple back-to-back bonehead penalties with some neutral zone infractions. A.J. Parker on either one of those guys, and I like A.J. Parker coming from where he came from, but that's not fair. I mean, it's really not fair. And I know it kind of sounds like a baby statement, but it just really isn't, So I don't know at this point. This will tie into the AP thing going rogue a little later, but I don't know what to say at this point other than they did whatever they wanted. We couldn't do anything. Kirby Joseph, thank you so much. You're developing into a great rookie. The rest of the secondary's got to be hanging their heads low today, though.
On those first 2 touchdowns, the Lions were playing press man coverage on him, and Jalen Waddle just made A.J. Parker look bad on that touchdown. Yeah. He beat him off the line so bad, and then the speed, he just walked away from him. Perfect little, throw over the shoulder. We're in press man coverage, but I still don't know where the safety help was. Everyone saw it coming. I don't know why we didn't get any help over the top. But Russ, what do you got to say about Hill and Waddle doing whatever they wanted?
Well, I think that you got to give Miami credit for the game plan. I mean, for one, their style of play, I think that they released the ball quicker than any other team in the NFL. So that kind of neutralizes any kind of pass rush that we're going to have because they're just getting rid of the ball too quick. So I thought that was a pretty good game plan. And here's the thing. You didn't hear Okudah's name because they're scheming against Okudah now. They're not even throwing to Okudah. Okudah surrendered 1 catch yesterday. Wow. And it's like, but that's that's the thing. That's the indictment on Aubrey Pleasant, which is probably why he got fired, is you actually have a cornerback that can cut off half of your field or can cover their best player, and you can kind of count on it to where they're scheming against it, and you still can't get those other cornerbacks to play well. I mean, we are at a talent deficit for sure. There's no doubt about it. We're at a talent deficit. We're 4 or 5 players short in the secondary and the back end of this defense. But the guys that Holmes has drafted are playing well, in my opinion.
Right. So, that brings us to our next question. What is wrong with this defense? You just said right there. It's not Okudah. Right? Greg Rice, what's wrong with this defense?
If your name is not Kirby Joseph, Jeff Okuda, or Malcolm Rodriguez, you've been an issue all year, excluding Hutch for a game and a half. Pascal played great. I have yet to see, other than the three players that I've named, put together two straight good performances.
You've had enough of that
shit. Exactly. It is just not working. I do not understand why we saw Hutch with his hand in the ground on a 3-point stance against Teron Armstead, something he struggled with all year long, and put him up against one of the best blind sides. And I knew it was coming. It's frustrating. It's like we took what worked last week with Aiden Hutchinson and said, you know what? You made enough progress in 1 week. Let's try this again. And we got no pressure. AP, I'm not exactly a big fan of his. I don't know what's going on with this defensive line. We have so much investment in it. I'll leave out Levi O. We have first, a second, 2 third rounders, a 4th rounder, a couple good free agent acquisition pickups, and we're not getting any production. We are tied for the league lead, I think, last for sacks. I know our pressure's fallen way off. It's inexcusable and just simply disgusting at this point. We made so much investments, and look, I get we've had injuries, we got players coming back, yada yada yada. It's sad. What we thought, I'll speak for myself. What I thought was a strength for this team going forward is actually, I put it on par, if not worse, than our secondary performance all year long. This defensive line has been atrocious. I don't know why Todd Wash is still here. He seems to not be putting the players in position to win. I don't know. It just baffles me.
Right. Russ, what do you think? What's wrong with the defense? I mean, you've told us what it isn't. Now tell us, what is it? What's wrong with this defense?
I mean, I think we're at a talent deficit. I really do on the back end. I mean, those, like you said, AJ Parker got toasted off of the line and he just couldn't run with an NFL wide receiver. I mean, Jalen Waddle has some special speed, and they just didn't have any answers for that. And guys, we didn't get laughed out of this thing. It's not like like we got blew out or something like that, but from an offensive to defensive perspective, there's definitely a deficit right there. So the fix, what is the fix? Gosh, go up against a team that doesn't get rid of the ball that quick. And even when they did pressure him, he just got outside of the pocket and made something happen. So it was like, man, what do you do? Have just score more points.
Yeah. Kudos to Tua and the Miami Dolphins. Tua did a great job of getting rid of the ball, feeling the pressure, getting out of it. He did take 2 sacks. But I agree with you. I think up and down the roster, we're just not deep enough. These guys just aren't good enough. They played a lot of zone defense yesterday.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And we were getting torched. But then again, I mean, there were some of those catches where Tyreek went up in double coverage and pulled it down, right? I mean, is it more how good they were or how bad we are? So let's talk about that, Russ. Is it more what Miami did or what Detroit didn't do?
Yes. I love when I get to answer that as a yes. I think it's a little combination of both. I mean, I think from a schematic wise, I think that they schemed it brilliantly. They knew how to put their speedsters up against matchups that, I mean, they didn't even throw at Okuda. They were smart about that. They were like, okay, wherever he's not, we're going to throw to the other guy. And I talked about it on the podcast.
Yeah.
Where I was like, I think Okuda is going to be all right, but how are they going to guard the other guy? And they're still trying to figure out how they were going to guard the other guy. And luckily they're going into Green Bay, or not going into Green Bay, but we're playing Green Bay, and their wide receivers aren't nearly as good as Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. It was that, and we don't have the talent at the same time. So it was a little bit of a combination of both, I would think.
Right. And as you said, you did mention that on the podcast. And I'd like to remind all of our viewers, you can catch that podcast on Spotify or Apple or anywhere where you get your podcasts. It airs every Thursday at 6 p.m. It's the Main Event 365 podcast. Nice little plug right there. So what's wrong with the defense? Apparently, Dan Campbell thinks it's Aubrey Pleasant, the secondary coach, the DB coach fired today by the Detroit Lions. Aubrey Pleasant giving his walking papers, kind of a bummer for me. Always got a soft spot for Aubrey because him and I got the same hometown, Flint, Michigan. We went to different high schools, but always kind of root for him as in his NFL career. Dan Campbell says he's a great coach and that he believes he will find a landing spot moving forward. But it is tough that the guillotine came down on Aubrey Pleasant. I don't know if it's so much his blame, but the Lions needed something. Something needed to be done. And this is just a knee-jerk reaction, I feel like. Greg Rice, what do you think about Aubrey Pleasant being fired today?
Look, I'll be the first to say it. I don't think Aubrey Pleasant was, like you just touched on, I think this is a victim of just heads got to roll. We're disappointing, and this is just what it is. I think he's done magnificent with Kirby Joseph. Deshaun Elliott, before his injury, was either average at worst or playing very well at best. Tracy Walker was seeing some of his best work with Aubrey Pleasant. Jerry Jacobs last year, UDFA, AJ Parker. I don't know how Pleasant, other than the going rogue narrative, how he lost his job. If anyone had to go, I thought it would have been Wash. Look, I like Pleasant, but I do understand the move. This is unacceptable football. I know we talked previously about where we thought our predictions were going to be at. When you're 1-6 and you were tied with the Houston Texans, who I look at and say, wow, they got a lot less talent than us. Why are they tied with us? This is unacceptable. And it's just like any other job performance. If the whole team's underperforming, front office corporations are gonna just essentially pick and choose who it is, and boom, you're done. So I don't know. I think it was merited a little bit. I also want to tap on that. What kind of issue is this with Aaron Glenn if Aubrey Pleasant went rogue? Did they have a debate about this week, or how did that happen? How did he get to calling off the press man coverage without Aaron Glenn knowing about it?
I hadn't heard that. Is that true? Is that why our zone was getting shredded? Did Aubrey Pleasant go cowboy on that?
I mean, that's it. I mean, that was said. I mean, that doesn't mean that it happened. If it did happen, that was definitely enough to get fired. I mean, 100%. Like,
I think Greg had a good point though. It's the perils of middle management. I know it well. When something's got to change, and when you're in a position of authority like Aubrey Pleasant was, your head's always on the chopping block. When something goes wrong, it could be you, and that's why your players are accountable to you for those reasons. Go ahead, Russ. Right. What do you think about Aubrey being fired?
Honestly, I think that it's too early to fire anybody when it comes to any of these things, because I mean, they're really just starting to get the rosters kind of formed with a couple of people that they might want to keep for the future and for the build and everything. And somebody had to get, I mean, really, this is a production league when it comes down to it. So somebody's head had the roll. So I guess if there's going to be somebody's head's going to roll, I mean, I don't want them to fire Aaron Glenn. I mean, I don't want them to cut off the heads. That's almost more of a admit of defeat than anything else. So them firing Pleasant, and it is the secondary. The secondary got shredded. It wasn't the defensive line or the linebackers. There were actually some other people that made plays on the defense. It was the secondary. So they fired the secondary coach. It makes sense.
But you know who wasn't that bad? The offense. The offense had a 27-17 lead at halftime. I mean, Jared Goff didn't look terrible. He had the offense clicking on all cylinders. They were marching up and down the field. I mean, this Goffense showed up, didn't it? Greg Rice, did the Goffense show up today?
Yeah, that was very impressive, and as Russ just touched on a little bit earlier, that might have been the best 30 minutes of Lions offense we've seen all year. The problem with that, though, is this is a game that's 60 minutes long, and I don't know what happened in the second half. Like I alluded to earlier, the inability to move the ball in the second half. Like we've been struggling with we've essentially, out of the last 12 quarters of football, you guys have played 2 good quarters of offense. That is absolutely unacceptable. I don't know what's going on with Ben Johnson. Didn't look like Goff was making a bunch of bad throws in this. It's just, I don't know what happened. Like what is going on? Like there's no backup plan if a defense adjusts. Sure, Goff did well. a lot of people are knocking on him because of that last throw in the 4th and 2. It wasn't a dime by any means. It might have been even questionably not even a good throw, but it was a catchable ball. And Josh Reynolds cost us on a couple of those yesterday. So, I mean, I don't know what to say other than the offense looked good. Ben Johnson, not so much these last 3 games. I think it's borderline getting pathetic, our inability to carry a consistent offense.
Well, I watched the replay several times, and I'm here to tell you that was a bad throw.
Okay.
He had to change directions and dive for it in the opposite direction at the last second. I think there was a bit of a push there. Easily could have been called pass interference. I'm still okay with the no call on it, however, at that point in the game. But had Goff put that ball over the other shoulder, he had a step on the defender. I think we might have had a different outcome had we had a better throw there. But this graphic should say Goff had showed up in the first half. Because as you just said, Greg, the second half was terrible. Only 3 possessions in the second half. In the first one, they had 3 consecutive penalties starting off on 1st and 30 to start the third quarter. They've been atrocious in the third quarter. For some reason, like you said at the beginning of this broadcast, some reason they come out of the halftime break and they are a shambles on offense. They go from looking like the greatest show on turf to can't even get a first down. So, yes, the offense showed up in the first half, but not the second half. And we just got to put 2 halves together. Russ, what do you think about the offense?
I really, for one, I really love that we kind of coined the phrase of the offense, and I love that it's just kind of part of the language now.
Quarterback.
And I thought, like you said, that for one half, the offense was amazing. They looked, if we could get that offense to be the offense all the time, gosh, we would be Super Bowl champions. But unfortunately, we're the Detroit Lions, and no, it can't happen for 2 halves. So I think they just need to be able to put it together, because it wasn't just the offense; it was the offensive line that was pushing people around. And they do have elite offensive linemen, and I think that they should take it and use it to their advantage more. I would run the ball even more. I'd say run the ball until you stop me from running the ball. That's the way I used to play Madden. I think that's the way that we should be doing it. So did the offense show up? Yeah, they did, kind of for a half, but then they disappeared.
Yeah. And I want to give a shout out to you, Greg, for calling this guy Javon Holland. I'm going to be honest. I had no idea who this guy was. 12 tackles, 10 solo tackles. Kid was all over the place, man. I mean, this guy flew under my radar on draft night. I don't even know where this kid came from, but he was absolutely stellar in the Lions. He was all over the field, especially in run support. Lions seemed to be able to run the ball. Jamal had 53 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jared Goff, 27 of 37 with a touchdown. Not bad, no interceptions. We were close in time of possession. Miami had 34-22 to 25-38 for Detroit. So a little of a bit of an edge there. They did have more plays than us, 57-64, not that much. Miami rushed for 107 yards across the board. Raheem Mostert only 64 yards, but he did have a 4.6 yard per carry average. So all in all, I think it comes down to, like you said, not being able to put a whole football game together. So now we get to the segment that says who's to blame for this loss, and then we can put this thing in the rearview mirror and look ahead. So who is to blame for this 31-27 loss to the Miami Dolphins? Russell Wade.
Anybody not named Jeff Okudah in the secondary, the guy that's supposed to guard the other guy.
So you're putting it on the whole secondary, the DB core.
The DB core, whoever's guarding the other guy.
Aiden Hutchinson was missing in this game. He was a no-show. He was getting handled at the line of scrimmage. I know they get the ball out quick and all of that, but he wasn't putting pressure on him. He wasn't coming there. There was no pressure coming. Josh Pascal certainly seemed to be toned down from the game before. For me, it's got to be the coaches on the defensive side. You know your talent is good, so you got to make adjustments. You got to be better than that. Okay. Did they do the best they could? Okay. Then it's the depth. Then whose fault is it then because of the depth? Not Brad Holmes. He's working from behind the 8 ball. Do we go back on the coaching staff and the GMs before that assembled this trash of a lineup that we have in the secondary? Is it their fault? We want to let everyone know that it's open mic night here on the main stage. So be sure to leave us a comment or a question. Who do you guys think is to blame for this meltdown of a game that we had? Coming up, we have our next segment where we're going to bring in a distinguished member of Green Bay Packer Nation. But before we do, I want to pose one question. I want to throw a curveball to you guys right here. Is the Lions season tanked now that we lost to Miami? Now that we're 1-6, is all hope lost for 2022, Russ?
I want to say no because of who we got to play. Because when you look at the records of the people that we've played up until now, I think that they got it wrong a little bit. I think that the teams that we've played are a little bit tougher than what people thought that they were going to be. And going to the end of the season, I actually think that, and this is where you thought we were going to go on a little winning streak right here too. You had us at 2-5 at the beginning of the season before we had anything going into this, and you still had us winning 7 games and 8 games.
No, I had 7. You had 8. You're right.
Yes.
Yeah, but I didn't know the Jets were going to be good. And I didn't know the Giants were going to be good. And I didn't know the Jacksonville or Seattle that they were going to be good.
But still, when you're looking through these things, it's like those are still like, I don't count them as losses. The only loss that I count for sure from between now and the end of the year is going to be Buffalo. That's a guaranteed loss. So they can go on a streak. So I'm not going to say it's over. My foot is like I said, one leg is out. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. This is, should we go for the draft or should we stay in here? I think that these next 2 games are going to tell me everything that I need to know. And that's just, that's kind of where I'm at.
Greg Rice, is this season a wash?
Yeah. This last loss.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
this
you.
Loss
Russ shops at the Homer Depot because he's a Homer. Thank you for keeping it real, Greg.
Yeah,
So
this
season's a wash. Tell us about it.
Absolutely. This last game was the nail in the coffin. You can't help but look at the schedule and be like, wow, what if? The reality is what if the Lions actually played even 3 quarters of good football, at all 3 facets? I haven't seen it. Where is it? It's not happening. We can't get out of our own way. I'm not even worried about what the other teams are doing or looking at the Packers struggles or the Bears struggles necessarily. I'm just looking at it we can't help but shoot ourselves in the foot. We walk out of that halftime tunnel, how can we get better? And we just take a 45 and put it to our foot, pull that trigger. And it is absolutely redundant. It's insanity. It's doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Why can't we play a complete game? I don't know. Like I said, one of my biggest disappointments is this defense as a whole. Even bigger than that, in my eyes, is this defensive line. I expected so much more. Those first couple weeks of football, we were amongst the league leaders in pressures. Where is that gone? What is going on? I don't know. I see maybe 3-4 wins, same as last year, and I don't know. That might not be good enough for some Lions fans.
Right. Well, here's my take. If we're asking if it's a wash, then we're asking what is the finish line? What is the goalpost? And that is obviously to make the playoffs, even if that's a wild card. And it looks like this year, in the NFC, 8 wins is not getting you into the playoffs. Okay.
Yeah.
So we are not going to get to 8 wins at this pace. Yeah. So I believe while it's not a wash, we're not mathematically out of 9 wins yet. It certainly is looking like this year's a wash when you got to play the Packers twice. You got to play Minnesota again. You got to play Buffalo yet. You still got another non-conference game that's going to be a challenge. So yeah, it's looking like the playoffs are out. And then there's going to be all kinds of Lions fans that come out of the woodwork and say, oh, they won 4 down the stretch. Now they screwed the draft pick. So you can't win with it. So is making the playoffs a distant possibility? Yes. But for all intents and purposes, no. This year's over with now at 1-6. But I'll never give up on this team. We love this team. And I know you guys love this team as well. It's time now for our segment where we bring in someone else who loves their team. Russ, is our guest ready?
Oh, yes. He's in the backstage right now. He's prepping up. He's ready to coach us on some football right here. You ready for the drop?
Drop it on him, buddy.
Know thy enemy. Man, what is going on, brother? How you doing?
Man, happy Halloween, man.
Happy Halloween,
Bill.
Yeah.
I think that I've screwed up Mike twice tonight. First of all, I told him that the Halloween costume party was tonight, And as you can see, he was completely ready for that. And then 2, he thought that my Know Thy Enemy drop was a little bit longer than that. So here we go. One more time just for you, Mike. Know thy enemy.
Know thy enemy. And we are very welcomed here on the main stage Monday night to welcome Bill, the Packer fan.
How's it
Bill,
going,
how
man?
are you?
Pretty good, man. Just licking my chops after yesterday's loss.
Tough loss to the Buffalo Bills for the Green Bay Packers, but we're really happy you're on the program. Thank you so much for being here. Tell our viewers where they can find you and what the NFC North Huddle's all about.
NFC North, the huddle is a bunch of NFC North fans. If you guys like to talk football or even have a little goofing around, that's the group for you. But you can always find me at Bill the Packer Fan Facebook page. Just give me a follow. I'd appreciate it the most. You'll get all your Packer team updates, news, injury reports, even birthdays.
Very cool.
Even
Very
Packer
cool.
player birthdays.
So I love NFC the huddle. I mean, it's a bunch of guys, Bears, Vikings, Lions, Packer fans in there. There's a little bit of smack talking going on, but I love that you guys keep it civil. And when I joined the group, there was a list of questions there, a list of things there you had to adhere to, which I thought was really cool. So I want to give you kudos, man, for you run a great group over there. And we're really proud to be affiliated with you in any way. So
we're
thanks
glad to have
again
you
for being here.
Yeah, for sure.
We're glad you're here. And we're going to kick around some questions to you about this upcoming Packers coming into Ford Field to play the Detroit Lions. Packers lost their season opener to Minnesota, and then they rattled off 3 wins in a row. Now they're on a 4-game skid coming into Ford Field. So, Bill, what's your initial reactions to this upcoming game coming up here?
I'm worried, you know what I mean? Because, we just lost 4 games in a row. If we lose another game, it's like the playoffs are getting more further out of reach, And I see you guys put up points, numerous weeks in a row, and we don't really do that much. So that's what kind of worries me, man. But our offense is starting to gem a little bit. Like yesterday, we've seen that dude Amari come out. And he's looking pretty sweet. That was his second start, So that may be a receiver that we might he might end up getting more play time, and hopefully he evolves into something good. Because Lazard's out with a shoulder, Cobb's out with a knee, Campbell's out with a knee. You know what I mean? Like the list just goes on.
Isn't it true, Bill, that if you stand too close to Sammy Watkins, you'll get injured?
Yeah. Him and I don't know if it's anyone with the last name that starts with Watson or Watkins. Like I don't know. I want to stay away from those names.
So Russ, I want you to save that clip. We have Bill on record as saying he is worried about the Goffins. He's worried about the Goffins.
Hey, not just yesterday, but like last game, man. Yeah, there's so many nice passes that were just dropped. They weren't utilized the way they should have. So.
Right.
So we're going to kick it around the panel for you now, Bill. Thanks again for being here. We're going to send it out to the West Coast stat master out in Cali, Mr. Greg Rice at Greg Rice 20. What do you got? Question for Bill, the Packer fan.
Hey, what's up, Bill? Happy Halloween, man. I'm glad you're here, man. Thank you for taking the time to come on the show.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely, man. So I guess my question is, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, is how critical is this game to the Packers season? And even a little bit more important than that, for Rodgers' career as a Packer. I know last year he said he doesn't want to be a part of a rebuild. So I have you guys winning this game, but let's just say you lose it. Is this going to create some turmoil or really start shaking things up over in Green Bay?
I kind of think so. Not as far as the Rodgers aspect. I think he'll be around for another year or two. He's like Brady, likes to play football. But as far as getting out of reach where the season is just a wash, this is definitely a do or die week right here. I can't even remember as far as I can remember, Rodgers going, losing 5 straight. Like, can any of you guys? Like, that's pretty rare. You know what I mean?
No.
So
when you're 13-3 every year, you don't lose 5 games.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but like I said, I see you guys putting up a lot of points. So if our defense could hold you back a little bit, we might got it, but at this point, in my eyes, it's 50-50, So.
But to Greg's question, if the Packers lose to the Lions, how bad is that?
That's going to be pretty bad. That means the season's pretty much done. It's a wash.
What?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
They can pull out enough to get 9, even if they lose to the Lions. They could make the playoffs, right?
It's 50-50. Very slim on that. Very slim.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It's giving me flashbacks of 6-9-1, man. You know.
Holy cow!
Ooh.
I would love
All right.
6-9-1. I'd take 6-9-1
I would
every
love
day.
6-9-1.
We'd love that.
Yeah,
So,
we
Russ,
would. As Lions, we'd love that.
What question do you have for Bill, the Packer fan?
Well, I mean, I was interested on the wide receiver end because I was watching the game yesterday and I saw Romeo Doubs make a couple really nice acrobatic catches, and then you got that little stank guy from Aaron Rodgers. And you guys are playing the Lions just in time for Rodgers to have one of his RELAX moments, and then it's the Lions that one of these guys has a coming out party. So, do you think that Doubs is the receiver, and if it's not Doubs, then who do you have?
Well, out of surprise yesterday, I mean, Doubs in the last few weeks has been dropping stuff. Yesterday, surprisingly, he dropped something and Rodgers went right back to him and he got it. So maybe that's going to build his confidence. So this week is going to be a big week for Doubs. Hopefully that builds his confidence because I see a lot of talent in him, but it's like he's nervous. You know what I mean? And then, I mean, a guy that you guys should really be watching for is that Amore Ray guy, because I see Rodgers making connections with him. Because I've never knew who the guy was or anything because he hasn't really got no play time, but I've read about him through Rodgers really liked him during the preseason. He was the one to make the most catches. Well, yesterday was his opportunity, and he came out big, you know.
Yeah.
So
We know Aaron Rodgers is big about trust, right?
Yeah.
We know that.
Yeah.
You know, he can take average receivers and make them better. That's what he does.
Yeah.
So I was just waiting for the season to see who it was that was going to be emerging, and I really thought it was Romeo Doubs. But you're putting us on this guy. One thing about Romeo Doubs, if you're looking to get some confidence. Coming into Ford Field's a great place to get it as a wide receiver right now.
Absolutely.
Just watching some of that tape from yesterday's game, I'm sure the Packers wide receivers are getting hungry to go in there and show what they can do and get off the schneid.
I hope you're right, man. I hope you're right for our season's sake, you know.
Well, Bill, some Packer fans are not as optimistic as you. On social media, even in your own group, many Packer fans are already starting to call for Rodgers' job.
Oh yeah, or the defensive coordinator's job, or Matt LaFleur's job. I've seen all three already.
And I've even seen some Packers fans who've given up on the year. You shot me a minute ago when you said, this year could be done if they lose to the Lions. I'm just shocked by that.
I mean,
but we know you're a diehard Packer fan.
Yeah.
You're the biggest of all Packer fans. So tell me, what do you say to these Packer fans that turn their back on your team?
I say that they're not true fans. They're just here to be with a winning team. It's win or lose. You got to be behind your team. It's loyalty. It's win or lose. Every week.
Oh, is that right? Well, let me say hypothetically, if your team didn't win for 60 years, would you still be?
I always say the Detroit Lion fan base, you can never be a bandwagon there. Like,
there is no bandwagon to jump on.
No.
Wow.
Man.
If you see someone claiming Detroit Lions, they're a loyal fan.
If your man's wearing a Lions jersey, stick with him. He's loyal.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, all right. Bill, this Green Bay Packer team, outside of, you've already stated that your quarterback loves to play football. We know he loves to play in this dimension and other ones as well. So tell me, what is the strength of this Packer team outside of Aaron Rodgers and DMT?
The strength, I would say the next best thing is probably our defense. It's pretty young.
Tell us about it.
Yeah.
It's pretty young. Yesterday they started. You could see him starting to click. I kind of like when opposing teams trash talk him because that really puts a fire under them. You know what I mean? Like, look, when the whole year we didn't get 2 interceptions in no games. I mean, they were on that. That secondary was hungry, and hopefully they're going to come into Detroit and be hungry as well. Because I see Goff sure likes to throw the ball a lot. So.
No.
So outside of Rodgers and obviously the two awesome running backs, you got Aaron Jones.
Oh yeah, besides the running backs too. Yeah, with the Aaron Jones.
You got a great run game. But you think
Dillon is banged up though after yes, I did see him. He did come back, but you could tell he was hurting a little bit.
Even though they lost to Buffalo, Aaron Jones looked good, man. 140 some yards, looked good. The run game's alive and well. How do you think the Packers will be able to run on the Lions defense?
I think if they utilize Aaron Jones like they did yesterday, they'll do pretty well. But in the previous weeks, they only do it in the first half and then steer away in a second. So hopefully he sticks with it like the Bills game. You know what I mean? Through into the second half. So.
Right. So if the strength of this team is the defense and the strength of our team is our offense, go.
Yeah. It's going to be a good battle.
So in that regard then, Bill, our offense and your defense, what do you see as an intriguing matchup along the lines or wide receiver DB? What do you see as the most intriguing matchup with our offense and your defense?
I'm going to say we're going to have to keep Amona St. Brown a little bit on because he's pretty fast and he's got excellent hands. So they're going to have to keep eyes on him and keep pressure on Golf. Keep pressure on Golf. It'll really pressure on the secondary. So.
Okay, so keep Amon-Ra in check and put some pressure on Golf because we know that when Golf's under pressure, he loses it. His passes go in. So
does Aaron Rodgers, though. So does Aaron Rodgers.
I'll send that question around the panel. Russ, what do you see as the most intriguing matchup in this game overall?
Most intriguing matchup. Gosh, man, the offense doesn't scare me as much as it when it had Devontae Adams on there. So I mean, I would normally say, oh my gosh, it's got to be Aaron Rodgers, but really, I think if they can get some stops on Aaron Rodgers, I really do think our offensive line does what our offensive line does. I think that we can move people out of the way, and I think our run game is still going to be successful against Green Bay, just like it's been successful against every team. So, I think that the key matchups, I guess, would be, will your wide receivers be able to torch our awful defensive backfield? So your bad wide receivers are going to go against our bad backfield, and let's see what's going to happen there, I guess.
I think that's actually a keen observation. Our crappy DBs against their subpar wide receivers.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think
that is an intriguing matchup. Greg Rice, anything
is it intriguing?
That you see?
Melvin, forgive me if you're watching this, but Rashawn Gary's an absolute beast. He's the best pass rusher out of Michigan. I'm intrigued to be watching Penei Sewell versus Rashawn Gary, or on the flip side, Taylor Decker versus Rashawn Gary. Is there anything that we need to know about Gary other than he's an absolute beast?
I mean, he's an absolute beast. It is what it is. And to be truthful with you, he usually don't get banged up too much, even though he is coming off a concussion. But he's usually pretty reliable too. So.
Yeah, definitely a durable defensive lineman. Yeah. What's it looking like on depth for your defensive line? How many guys do you rotate in and out of there?
I think like 3 or 4. What we're lacking on now is linebacker, though, because Campbell's banged up pretty good. They said that he's got a bad knee injury, but it wasn't nothing that was going to put him on IR none. So not having him play Sunday is going to be a big deal for us. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I hated the Quay Walker. Quay Walker pick. What's your feeling on Quay Walker, the draft pick, and how has he played as a rookie?
Well, the week before this week, he actually had I don't remember the exact number, but he had a good amount of tackles. What got me upset is the way he handled himself yesterday by pushing that practice squad tight end.
What was that about?
Well, he had fell down, and when he got up, he had his back turned, and he felt someone like push him up. The guy was trying to help him up.
Oh, but,
wow. He took it as like he gave him a push, so he got up and shoved him. Then they were getting ready to start the play, and they stopped the game and said that he's got to go.
Wow. So there's been a lot of knocks on him through the first few weeks of the season, and a lot of Packer fans really giving him some shit about it. What's your assessment of the guy? Is he going to be okay moving forward? Is he going to be a good addition to this defense?
Well, I mean, by playing by the last few weeks, you could see him progressing week by week. Yeah. So I'd say he'll be okay. I mean, every rookie's going to need development regardless. You know what I mean? Just like, I mean, look, remember Devontae Adams, his nickname for the first 2 years was Drop Day or whatever, Drop Adams. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
So it's going to take time. We'll see, but he is definitely progressing. And that's what I'm starting to see with our offense too. So hopefully you guys give us some inspiration Sunday.
Just in time to make a highlight reel for Rodgers. like 2 weeks ago, I had and I picked Rodgers to be one of my lock picks on our podcast because I thought that you guys would kill the Commanders. I was like, oh my God, they're going to cover that spread, and then you didn't, and I'm like, oh no. Now we're going to be the one. Now we're going to be the one that you can. Oh yeah, look at Aaron Rodgers is going to get right. Oh shoot! Now I got to listen. Now I got to listen to Collinsworth, Jock, Aaron Rodgers. Oh no.
Yeah, you know, Russ, you had that thought like 2 weeks in advance too. You were thinking that, but you were looking ahead to the Packer game, and you said, "Who do they got next week?" And I said, "Buffalo." You said, "Oh, great."
Yep.
I think we kept up with Buffalo pretty good, though. We kept up with Buffalo pretty good. I thought it was going to be a blowout. I mean,
yeah, for sure.
I mean, we didn't win, but we didn't get our teeth knocked in.
Right. Well, I am up. I think that that NFL is looking at me as one of the final candidates for their script writing. So I think that I might take the job because I think I could be pretty good at it.
Right.
So, Bill, last question, and then we want to get a prediction from you.
Sure.
What are the Green Bay Packers' keys to winning? I'd like you to give me about 3 bullet points here. What does Green Bay have to do other than show up to beat the Lions?
We got to stop the run. Well, first we got to get on the plane. So we got to stop the run.
Stop the run.
We got to lock down Amona St. Brown.
Okay.
And put pressure on Goff. If we can get those 3 things together, and then if on our side, if we can get Jones moving the ball like we did yesterday, I think we got a chance. I think we definitely got a chance.
Yeah. You've always got a chance when you got number 12 back there. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right on. So now, Bill, what I need from you is a prediction on the game. Who wins, and give me a score, please.
I'm going to say 17-10 Green Bay. I think it's going to be low scoring because our defense is starting to gel. And I'm just saying the 17 because I'm a Packer fan and we got to get this win. So I say we're going to win by 1 score.
All right. 17-10. Bill, the Packer fan, predicts Green Bay in victory next week in Ford Field against the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
We'd like to remind everybody that it is open mic night here on the Monday night main stage on the Main Event 365. Bill, the Packer fan, thanks so much. We're going to let you go because we're going to make our predictions. And we don't want you to have to witness how homerish we're going to be. So,
all right, you guys have a good night. Hey, can I get a go pack? Oh man,
no,
Pack, no.
I do like cheese.
All right, have a good night, fellas. See you.
Have a good one, Bill.
Cheek and 3 toes.
Know thy enemy.
Bill, the Packer fan, ladies and gentlemen, on the program. Thanks so much for being here. Remember, it's the NFC North, The Huddle. Be sure to check out that Facebook group and join it and put your 2 cents in. They love to hear your feedback, as do we here on Open Mic Night. So drop us a comment or a question, and we'll try to answer it for you.
Yeah, how about I hit some of those right now? I got one Facebook user says LaFleur is going to make Dan Campbell cry. So let's get you up there.
Okay. I don't think Dan Campbell's ever cried.
So Dan Campbell will beat the 0-7, go to 0-7 on 4th down. So he's going to beat the record this week.
The record is 0-6, set by Dan Campbell himself.
Yeah. And he's going to break it. And you heard it here first.
So that is our Facebook user. Russ, tell the people what they got to do if they want to see their name on the screen when they ask us a question.
Well, I mean, they have like little instructions when you go onto the Facebook part of it of how really you just have to give Facebook access or StreamYard access to your Facebook. We're not going to send you anything. All we're going to do is be able to see your name. So I don't have to say, hey, Facebook user says that Watson will have a big day. Wait.
Sorry, he'll get a hangnail.
He'll get a hangnail. So did you ask the question of what
Well, they think Christian Watson's going to have a big day. He's a big receiver. He's got 4.3 under sub 4.3 speed. He's big, he's long, he's tall. He's been injured. They do say that he might play against Detroit. Before we move on to the next question, Greg Rice, do you think Christian Watson shows out against the Lions?
Yeah, Sure, why not? What a defense to do it against, right? If you're struggling, come play our Lions. You will shine. Ask Bailey Zapp. If you're new to the league, come play the Lions. You'll shine. Coming off an injury, come play the Lions. You'll shine.
I don't know.
I don't even know what to. I can't. There's no defense for this defense. Literally.
Yeah, I get it.
I love it.
But just like every year, the Lions beat the teams they're not supposed to, and they lose to the teams that they're supposed to beat. And it very rarely does a rookie receiver come into Ford Field and tear it up. So I don't see him or Dubs, either one, getting over 100 yards on the Lions, just because, hey, Detroit's a tough place to play. I mean, you might be beating us, but every game's been close there this year. So I think it's a good question, and we really appreciate the question coming in. What do we got next, Russ?
Well, I mean, really, Greg, you got some endorsements right here. Greg Rice, you should be hired as a head coach. It couldn't get any worse. So Greg gets his first an NFL head coaching endorsement here on the main stage. That's awesome. And
Thank
then,
wait, before you go, I want to respond to that Facebook user. Greg Rice as coach, it could be a lot worse. He said it couldn't get any worse. It could be a lot worse.
Speaking of coaches, Dan Campbell should be fired as the last coach before we get into our predictions.
Dan Campbell should be fired. Hey, I think there's some validity to that narrative. He's got a weak roster. The players seem to love him, but he's not a Brad Holmes hire. So from that angle, I can semi-agree with that. What do you think, Greg?
Yeah, and we talked about this before. Brad Holmes wasn't his pick. Dan Campbell. Right. This was a front office pick, and I can't relay that enough. I like Dan Campbell. I like his small talk. I like his table talk. I like his conference pressers when we win. What I do get tired of is seeing the blatant frustration on loss after loss. He's damn near in tears every time, and this dude is a giant and looks like he could really catch that fade in the back alley, and just seeing him come out heartbroken week after week. It's mind blowing, and I like I said, I don't know if it was necessarily the play call on the 4th and 2 or what it was, why all of our receivers, why everyone, it wasn't just a mid route. It made no sense to me. Maybe it was a Goff thing. I don't know. It just seems like week after week that I cannot absolve the coaching for something or something suspect. It just seems like there's always a crucial moment or something where you look at the coaching staff or the coordinators and be like, really? That's what you thought to play?
Right. Well, I gotta give Dan Campbell some credit though. The last 2 games, I feel like he's matured as a coach. His decision-making seems to be more sound. And also on the fake punt yesterday, it was a very subtle thing, but Russ and I both saw it, and it made us laugh, really. When he did the fake punt, the camera was on him, and the Lions will send out the punting unit, the announcer says. And as he's doing it, Dan Campbell looks like he's about to tell the punting unit, but they're already running by him. So he just kind of goes, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
An acting job. He did an acting job.
He did.
And I said to Russ, oh my gosh, I think he's going to fake it. I think either this guy
is like, no way.
He doesn't know what's happening, or he's going to fake it. And they executed the fake punt successfully. And he even had a little trickery, a little thespianism on the sideline. So I thought that was pretty good. I like this guy. I really do. But in the words of Bill Parcells, you can't expect me to cook the meal if you're not going to let me buy the groceries. Let's let Brad Holmes buy the groceries so we can really judge him and the job that he's doing. We know he's doing a great job with the salary cap. We know he's doing a great job on drafting. The rookies are showing out. They look like great picks.
Yeah.
This is a component to the job that he hasn't had a chance to show what he can do yet. So to our Facebook user, thank you so much for putting that comment in. And I'm going to tell you, not everybody disagrees with you.
Yeah.
Anything else from the gallery, Russ?
Well, what I was going to comment on that, I think that we have a platform here where I mean, I don't like the SOL narrative, but I have to give it validity. It deserves validity. It deserves to have its own platform out there because they're not doing well. So you got to get out there, and Dan Campbell's job should absolutely be in jeopardy if he finishes out. His scapegoat just went walking out the door in Aubrey Pleasant. So now he's got to fix this defense on his own, or Brad Holmes is actually drafted pretty well. So he'll get his coach in here to finish the job if he doesn't. So, and this last comment right here says Packers don't have to worry about nothing. Dan Campbell is the head coach. Packers 28, Lions 13. So that's how much respect he has on the outside of these walls, man. Like,
well, our coach could be Bill Belichick, and it would still be tough for the Lions to win with some of this depth that they have, or lack of depth, this roster they have on defense. But we definitely appreciate the comment. We're glad to see so many Packer fans joined our broadcast today.
Yes, sir.
So it's time now for our panel of headliners here to make a prediction. Bill, the Packer fan, has Green Bay winning 17-10. So Bill says take the under. Packers by 7. What do you like?
I like the Packers by 7. I think in the end, Packers line history, Aaron Rodgers doing what Aaron Rodgers does. That relaxed mantra as Russell, didn't mean to call you Rodgers, Russell, tapped in earlier, that whole relaxed mantra. What a game to turn your season around against this Detroit Lions defense. I think that if there's a time to do it, now's the time to do it. I can't emphasize enough on the question I asked Bill, because I really feel if by somehow the Lions manage to play even 3.5 competent quarters, we do have a chance of winning this. And if we do, I think the Packers season is done, and there's going to be a lot of questions going forward with him. That being said, I don't see that happening. I see us on average, we play the Packers good, usually about 1.5 games a year, usually one game with a good first half, then blown out in the second half. And then usually one game down to the wire. I see this game as the game where we put up a good first half, get blown out the second half. Then due to prevent defense, we kind of make it look like a game. So we lose by 7. They are missing. They possibly might be missing Campbell this week. All signs point to it. I'll give it to them 31-24.
Russ Wayne, let's hear your predictions for this game.
All right. Like I was telling you earlier, I have 1 foot in and 1 foot off, but I do have 1 foot in. So my Lions and my homerism has one more week of homerism to go into this. And it's more because of how
Here it comes.
How bad I think that Green Bay is. I was watching them play the Bills yesterday, and I really didn't see much of anything except for them getting chippy at the end and getting a couple plays and making it wasn't even really interesting at the end. They really just kind of got their butts kicked in that game against the Bills. So, but they are the Bills. But I think that we're going to be able to run the ball against these guys. The Buffalo, a lot of teams have been successful running the ball. I think that we're going to be no different. And if we can play 3 quarters of defense, I think that we're going to win the game. I'll say 28-24.
All right, 28-24. And you think we're going to win?
I do.
All right, well, I'm not going to ridicule you for that because I also think you're going to win. In my heart, I think they're going to win. But at the beginning of the year, I predicted they would win this game, that they would lose at Lambeau, but they would win this game. And I'm going to have to stick by that. And I like the score of 28-24. I think it's, like Greg said, they're going to come back at the end, probably beat us. I like the score 28-24. Lions win the game. Thanks for keeping it real up there, Greg, out in California, and not all 3 of us being the Homer Depot here on the Main Event 365.
Hey, I'm Ohio guy.
We thank everybody for watching. Remind everybody the podcast comes out on Thursdays at 6. You can get that on Apple Music or Spotify or anywhere where you get your podcast. The Main Event 365. Be sure to go over to our YouTube channel and smash that subscribe button because we need it. We love it. Doesn't cost you a thing. For Greg Rice at Greg Rice 20 and for the producer Russ Wayne, I'm Main Event Mike. God bless you all. Peace out.